I spent 4 months interviewing for a position that never actually existed, 6 rounds of interviews, 3 presentations, 2 skills assessments, and when HR accidentally forwarded me their internal email thread, I discovered the job had been filled before my first interview even started. What I did next got me banned from their entire corporate campus. I'd been a marketing analyst at a mid-sized tech company for 5 years when I saw the posting. Senior Marketing Strategist at Vertex Solutions, one of the biggest names in our industry. The salary was a 40% increase. The title was exactly what I'd been working toward. The job description read like someone had pulled it directly from my resume. I applied on a Tuesday night and got a response Wednesday morning. That should have been my first red flag. In my experience, corporate hiring moves at the speed of a glacier with a hangover, but I was too excited to think clearly. The recruiter's name was Daniel. He was enthusiastic, almost breathless on the phone. He told me my background was perfect, that the hiring manager had personally flagged my application, that they were moving quickly because they needed someone exceptional. I floated through the rest of that week. The first interview was with Daniel himself. Standard stuff. He asked about my experience, my goals, why I was looking to leave my current role. I gave polished answers. I'd practiced them in my bathroom mirror until my roommate threatened to charge me rent for the extra time. Daniel said I was moving forward. The hiring manager wanted to meet me. Her name was Patricia Chen, VP of Marketing. She had a corner office that I could see through the video call background, and she spoke with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from 20 years of climbing corporate ladders. I liked her immediately. Patricia asked strategic questions. She wanted to know how I'd handled a failed campaign, what metrics I prioritized, how I'd approach entering a new market. I had case studies ready, I had data, I had a portfolio of campaigns I'd led that had generated real, measurable results. At the end of the call, Patricia smiled. "I'm impressed," she said. "We're going to want you to present to the team." I spent the next 2 weeks preparing a presentation. I researched Vertex Solutions until I could recite their quarterly earnings in my sleep. I analyzed their competitors. I identified 3 market opportunities they were missing and built a full strategic proposal with projected ROI. The presentation was on a Thursday afternoon. 8 people in the room, all senior leadership. I spoke for 45 minutes. I answered questions for another 30. When I left, Patricia shook my hand and said, "That was exceptional work." I thought I had it. Then came the skills assessment. 2 parts. The first was a written analysis of a hypothetical product launch. The second was a live problem-solving session where they gave me data and watched me work through it in real time. I spent an entire weekend on the written portion, 12 pages, charts, projections, a full implementation timeline. The live session was nerve-wracking, but I got through it. The panel seemed pleased. Daniel called me that evening to say the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Then there was a panel interview with the C-suite, CEO, CFO, CMO, 3 people whose time was billed in thousands of dollars per hour, all asking me about my 5-year plan and my leadership philosophy. I answered everything. I was charming, I was prepared, I was exactly who they said they were looking for. After that, Patricia called me personally, not Daniel, Patricia. She said, "We have one more step. It's really just a formality at this point. We need you to meet with our board liaison. He likes to have a final conversation with senior hires." 6 interviews. I was about to do my 6th interview for a position I'd applied to 4 months ago. But I did it. I met Robert Castellano, board liaison, in a conference room that cost more than my apartment. He asked me about my values, my integrity, how I'd handle ethical dilemmas. I gave thoughtful answers. He nodded along. When we finished, he stood up and shook my hand with both of his. "I think you're going to fit in perfectly here." I walked out of that building feeling like my entire life was about to change. 2 weeks passed. No call, no email. I reached out to Daniel 3 times. He was always busy, always about to call me back, always just stepping into a meeting. Finally, on a Monday morning, I got an email from HR. But it wasn't addressed to me. It was a forwarded thread. Someone had accidentally included me when they meant to send it to another Michelle. The subject line was REE, Senior Marketing Strategist Hiring Update. I opened it with shaking hands. The thread went back 4 months, back to the day I'd submitted my application. And right there in black and white was a message from Patricia Chen to Daniel and the rest of the hiring team. As discussed, Michael Whitfield has accepted the senior strategist position and will start March 1st. Per the board's request, we need to continue the external interview process for compliance documentation. Please identify 3 to 4 strong candidates we can move through the pipeline. Full process required for audit purposes. The date on that email was February 12th. My first interview with Daniel was February 18th. The job had been filled 6 days before I ever spoke to anyone. Okay, I need to stop here because I'm still shaking just thinking about this. 4 months, 6 interviews, a full presentation to their leadership team, and the entire time, they already had their guy. Subscribe if you think what they did should be illegal, because honestly, I still don't know if it is. Drop a comment if this has happened to you, because apparently it's way more common than I ever imagined. And stay with me, because what I found when I kept reading that email thread made everything so much worse. I sat at my kitchen table for an hour just staring at my laptop screen. The coffee I'd made went cold. My roommate asked if I was okay, and I couldn't even form words. Because as I scrolled through that thread, I realized the depth of what they'd done. There were comments about my interviews, real-time reactions from Patricia and her team. Michelle's presentation was actually better than Michael's. Almost wish we could hire both, but the board already signed off. Her skills assessment scored higher than anyone we've seen this quarter. Archive it for future reference. Robert loved her, said she reminded him of Patricia 20 years ago. Unfortunate timing. Unfortunate timing. They knew I was overqualified. They knew I was perfect for the role, and they used me anyway, processed me through their pipeline like I was nothing more than a compliance checkbox. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was an email from Daniel to Patricia dated 3 weeks ago. Michelle is getting persistent. Should I send the rejection or keep her warm in case Michael doesn't work out? She's a strong backup. Patricia's response, keep her warm, don't reject yet. If Michael fails his 90-day review, we can fast-track her without reposting. They were keeping me in a holding pattern, not because they were still considering me, but because they wanted a free backup plan. I'd spent 4 months waiting for a decision they'd already made just so they could pull me off the shelf if their first choice didn't pan out. I forwarded the entire email thread to my personal account. Then I took screenshots. Then I exported it to a PDF. Then I printed 3 copies and hid them in different locations like some kind of paranoid spy. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I did my research. I called an employment attorney. I learned that what they'd done, while ethically repulsive, wasn't technically illegal. Ghost jobs, fake postings, compliance interviews, it's all shockingly common. Companies do it to justify hiring decisions they've already made, to collect resumes for future positions, to create the appearance of a fair process when there isn't one. But here's what my attorney told me that changed everything. While the practice itself might not be illegal, the specific promises they'd made to me could constitute detrimental reliance. See, during my interview process, I'd asked Daniel directly whether the position was still open. He'd assured me it was, multiple times, in writing. I'd also turned down another job offer during this process, specifically because Daniel had told me I was the leading candidate and should expect an offer within 2 weeks. I had that email saved. I had proof that I'd turned down a guaranteed position because of representations they'd made while knowing the job was already filled. That was actionable. I gave my attorney the emails. She drafted a demand letter. We sent it to Vertex Solutions' legal department on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, my phone was ringing. Not from legal, from Patricia Chen herself. She was apologetic. She was mortified. She claimed she had no idea Daniel had made those promises, that this was all a miscommunication, that she was personally devastated to learn how I'd been treated. I recorded the entire call. My state allows one-party consent. I told Patricia that I appreciated her reaching out, but I would be pursuing this through legal channels unless they could offer a meaningful resolution. She asked what I wanted. I told her compensation for the opportunity I'd lost by declining the other offer, reimbursement for the time I'd spent on their fake interview process, and a written admission that the position was filled before my candidacy was ever considered. She balked at the admission. She said it could expose the company to liability. I said that was precisely the point. 2 days later, I received a settlement offer. It wasn't just a small amount. It was more than the salary of the position I'd been strung along for. They also agreed to provide a letter, carefully worded but clear, acknowledging that their hiring process had been flawed and that I had been misled about the status of my candidacy. I signed the settlement. Part of the agreement was that I couldn't discuss the specific terms publicly. But here's what I can tell you. I used that money to take 3 months off. I decompressed, I processed the betrayal, and then I started applying again, but differently this time. Now I ask questions, direct questions. Is this position currently filled? Has an internal candidate been identified? What's the timeline, and what would cause it to change? The responses tell me everything I need to know. If they're vague, if they dodge, if they can't give me a straight answer, I withdraw my application. My time is not a compliance checkbox. As for Vertex Solutions, 6 months after my settlement, I saw a news article. They were being investigated by the State Labor Board for discriminatory hiring practices. Apparently, I wasn't the only one they'd strung along for compliance purposes. There was a pattern, a long one. Michael Whitefield, the guy who actually got the job, he lasted 8 months before being quietly let go. I heard through industry contacts he never quite lived up to expectations. I wonder sometimes if Patricia thought about calling me then, if she pulled up my file and considered whether she could fast-track me after all. She never reached out. I wouldn't have answered anyway. I'm at a new company now, one that was transparent from day one about their process, one that gave me an offer 3 weeks after my first interview because they actually knew what they were looking for and they recognized it when they saw it. It's been 2 years. The anger has faded mostly, but I still think about those 4 months, all that time, all that preparation, all that hope. And every time I see a job posting that seems too perfect, I remember, sometimes the trap looks exactly like the treasure. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that whole nightmare. If this story made you angry, or if you've been through something similar with ghost jobs or fake interview processes, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Drop a like if you want to see these companies exposed for what they really do. And if you have your own workplace horror story, something about terrible bosses, toxic HR, promotions that vanished, I want to hear it. Send your story to us and it might be featured in an upcoming video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.